right. Thanks for coming on with me, Chris. Hi, everybody. I am Candice Christiansen,
And I'm Chris Kishiyama.
and we are a mixed race, cis, I'm queer, um, neurodifferent couple. And this is going to be a really raw and real podcast that we're going to do. We have been fighting all morning. We just literally agreed to get on because we have 30 minutes, but my rejection sensitivity is through the roof right now. And so I said, let's just do this. This is not going to be your vanilla podcast about autism. I want this podcast to talk about all things autism related to sex, sexuality, gender identity, because that's not talked about enough. And so I've asked my beloved Chris to join me because he's such a big part of my story. And, our story is throughout, like written throughout Love, Sex, and Autism, the book that I just published. And um, yeah, I just want people to experience kind of the real and raw us, unfiltered, and hopefully leave you with some inspiration and some tips and tools. So that was a lot. I'll pause and take a breath and take a drink. And um, yeah, what do you want to say, babe?
I agree. I think that so many podcasts are about the happy face, right? And kind of soft and vanilla and um which there is that, right? There is a lot of beauty in
Mm-hmm.
all relationships. And getting real and talking about the realness of a relationship, no matter the neurotype, it's just talking about real relationships because all relationships have conflict. All relationships go through a cycle of struggle. And yeah, so humanizing that, not shying away from it, I think it's a great idea. And I'm very proud of you for your book. It's an amazing book, an amazing launch. And I know how hard you worked on it and I'm
Is
very
this
proud
our
of you for it.
makeup? Are we doing like a public podcast makeup right now?
Yeah.
I just noticed my name says Namaste for our business Namaste Center for Healing. And I love Namaste with you, Chris, your background, and that being the inspo. And then, so let me just change it. Namaste Center for Healing is our healing center here in Utah. Just for those of you that are new to us, maybe seeing my name would be helpful. Um, Yeah, I wasn't planning on us talking today. I thrive with predictability. Change is very hard for me as an autistic person. I'm AuDHD, diagnosed in my mid 40s. And um, so predictability is really important to me. And we got on today and there were some issues. There's been just some technical issues. And we found ourselves fighting like we do. Just it's so fascinating how we do this work with couples, and we do, IFS, internal family systems model, looking at our parts. And then I'm an IFIO, intimacy from the inside out couple therapist. And so just a lot of that. But then when it comes to you and I, it's so hard. It's so hard.
Yeah, I think that we and many couples uh fall into the old pattern very easily. Instead of like using the very explicit tools that we talk about, like just even simply asking a clarifying question like, hey, did you mean this? Like when you said that, is this what you meant?
Mhm.
And that little pause, that little clarification could like save us from, I think, 90% of our conflict because we don't like something is said, something is interpreted by a part, and then that hot potato gets tossed back over and then we're off to the races. So I think you just even having that little stopgap of just clarifying would help so much.
I agree. I think it's easy to stay in our head and be superficial about it, though. And the reality is, like, I'm looking at page 66 on what causes conflict, chapter 5, and really looking at intention doesn't equal impact, right? And so I want to talk about some of this before we get into solutions, and I want to help both of us be able to kind of drop in and just be raw and real. Because the reality is that yeah, I'm looking at like the double empathy problem on page 24, and I talk about rejection sensitivity and, all this stuff where it's, for me, when I feel sometimes my processing speed, it's almost like it's too fast. And so I'll miss some of the things that you say. And then what I hear is like I'm to blame. There's something wrong with me. And then I have a part that gets really defensive, and I feel like emotional even right now talking about it. That's why I didn't want us to stay in our heads, because I know that listeners can relate to what I'm saying, that it's so painful when, I think I've heard something and then my body experience it as a danger cue, like my autonomic nervous system, and I feel immediate rejection, even if that's not happening, right?
Hmm.
And so that's where I said on the call earlier with you, literally like 2 minutes before we got on here, like, I think really what I'm needing is just some space. And I know you're saying that, like even just pausing and asking, but it's like space to be me as an autistic person. And because like I said, I'm processing so fast that it's so funny because you literally just said, I think if we could just pause. But I just want listeners to kind of hear our process before we go into the pause, because what I was saying is you do have a tendency, I give you a lot of props, Chris, but in my experience, like you do have a tendency to blame. There is a tendency to, and you also get really defensive. And so in the world, we look really pretty and beautiful and we sound really good, but in behind closed doors, it's raw and real and it's painful. And it's not all painful, but I was just saying to you on the call, like my autistic system, when I hear criticism or I hear a complaint and it translates to me as I'm doing something wrong, I don't just go to this is the issue right now. I go to, oh my God, our relationship. And I think I've talked about that in the book. I'm pretty sure I did, where it's like, oh my God, our relationship is ending, right?
Hmm.
And so I just want listeners to hear that raw piece, saying that I also get defensive. I also can blame. I also own that. And I want people to hear it's not like Candice has the autistic problem and Chris is just this perfect person. No, it's like you also get defensive and blame and have parts that can do very similar things. And I wanted us to just unpack that a little bit for people before we go into the treasure trove of resources in my book. So I don't know, I want to hear from you.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you inviting me to unpack that before we move into any
Yeah.
kind of solution mode.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Like what came up for you? I guess what came up for you, right? Parts of you, because I shared, like, for me, what came up was the rejection,
Yeah.
feeling blamed. I'm just curious, I guess, for listeners, just what came up for you in our disagreement, or I don't even know what to call it, our conflict. Yeah, our conflict.
Yeah. It was a conflict. And
Hmm.
so like in it first I want to own that I can definitely be defensive, I can be blaming, all the things. Um, and when you shared,
They're recording. He said it. It's now recorded for the world to hear.
dang it.
It's now the whole world. I have a recording of it. Keep going.
Exactly. So, like I think like when you said your brain works really fast and you miss some things, what comes up for me is a similar thing. Um, but it's not that my brain is processing fast, like critically thinking or logically
Mhm.
thinking. It quickly moves into a part. Then and that part interprets what's being said and finishes out the sentence and creates meaning behind it. So like before you're even done saying what you're saying, my part has went, oh, I know what this is. It sounds like this. I'm gonna finish the sentence for her in my own head, and here's the
Mhm.
meaning behind it. And now I have parts within my system that go, oh, well, she's accusing me of this or blaming me for this thing. I have parts that go, wait a sec, we didn't just do that. Like, what happened? And so then they're responding to I'm responding because I'm responsible for my parts. I'm responding to the part that was talking in my head and not what was actually being said by you. Like, and I know that I just immediately moved to like this, and not even a solve piece, but like, but that's what happens. I'm aware of it. That's what happens, but it happens in an instant. So what comes up for me is parts that finish the sentence, interpret, and then I respond in kind. Not kind, but like,
Well, I can hear that. I mean, I think parts when I'm not driving, like it with some self-let leadership, right? Like, meaning like when I'm feeling like there's danger, I'm not safe, and I have that danger cue, then I have parts that talk through it for me. I'm not
mhm,
talking for my parts. So are you saying that? Because I experience both of us as talking as our parts, not like talking from the part. We're not talking for the part. Otherwise, it would have looked really different. Like our conflict that was literally about tech issues because I'm presenting so much right now, need your assistance, right? I know we talk from our parts, and when we do that, like everything I talk about in, about conflict happens. Because parts don't know who you and I are. They're
mhm,
oftentimes a lot younger. My part was saying, I feel like I'm in trouble.
mhm,
I had a part that was like, I feel like I'm in trouble. And because of that, I'm really discouraged. Like, it just makes me want to like flee, makes me want to flee. If we talk about just that autonomic nervous system activation, right? So it's like a part of me, because this is where I want to do that repair with you. A part of me felt very like judged and blamed, right? And so in response, it goes, let's leave, let's get off the call, right? This is too much. And so as I'm saying that, I feel like just naming that, there feels like some unblending for me where I feel like there's a little more spaciousness between me and that part in this moment as we're kind of talking through it live,
mhm.
um, which I actually think helps,
Yeah.
And so I am aware that a part of me gets defensive because I am afraid of rejection when I know if I slow it down that your intention really was to help with like, let's get it on the schedule so that we're not trying to figure out tech issues when you're presenting for Yale. Like,
Yeah.
like you're on and everyone's looking at you, and and so just saying that and having us process, I feel kind of emotional, but I feel really grateful for you because it's
Mm,
like you're my person, and it's so I so appreciate you create like that structure and that predictability for me, especially when I'm getting on to present And there's so many moving parts, like the world, there's just so many moving parts in the world. And it causes me so much anxiety that, I mean, I can only mask so much, right? And then it's like just that exhaustion. So, anyway, I can feel some tender parts here as I'm sharing. Um, and just really aware of actually how grateful I am that you're wanting to help, and just that your intention was wanting to get on the schedule something. And I can also share that the impact of how you communicated hurt my feelings, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna repair, make repair there. It's like I don't ever want you to feel rejected or blamed. And I don't ever want to hurt your feelings. So for that, I truly am sorry because I don't ever want you to feel that way. I love you. You're my person.
I
You're,
love you so much.
I love you so much, and it makes sense to me that impact, right? Separate from my intent. Like you can feel and hear my intent now that we have some
Yeah.
separation, little
Yeah.
selfness,
Yeah.
and I can still own my impact, because I still spoke from my part, not for my part, and that doesn't alleviate me of any responsibility. I'm still responsible. I have to pay that credit card bill, and so I apologize for that.
I
And
just want to say I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And I also know I've caused impact, so I'll just pause again, but I just really can feel you, and I know you, so I just really appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, I appreciate you so much. So like, are you okay if I share kind of what happens
Yeah.
for me?
Yeah.
So like part of my trauma, um, we had a lot of trauma, but like the one that I'm gonna talk about is like pertains to some of my attachments. So like, that I was a parentified child, right? Like, my
Hmm.
dad wasn't around a lot, and so my mother really made me like the surrogate spouse, and I had to care for her feelings, right? She made me responsible for her feelings and her safety and everything. So when you ask me for help, like there is that altruistic part of my character is like, oh yeah, I'd love to help. It's just part of who I
Hmm.
am. And I always have to remember there's also that little guy inside that like,
Mm.
oh, I'm being asked for help, right?
Mm.
And then when there was like it to that part, that young part, it felt like I'm asking you for help, but I'm not going to give you a way to help me, right?
Mm.
Because the part of the breakdown was like, hey, well, we don't have time to schedule it, or you need to take care of this, but figure it out. And so the little guy was like, yeah, you're asking me for help, but now I don't have a way to help you. And when I don't have a way to help you, then I don't know how to be safe in my own world, right? I don't know how to fulfill that role. And so it felt like this part felt like it was in a bind going, okay, you're asking for help, I'm jumping in, but now there's like resistance to that help. And that just caused all kinds of chaos. And then I had protectors come forward and managers that were like trying to manage the conversation and unfairly pointed out what that part was perceiving that you were doing to create resistance to me helping you, right? Which would absolutely come off as blaming, for sure. So I can own that. And because I have separation from my parts too, right? I have that softness and I can see it from self. I can see the impact on you, you know? And I can also have compassion for that little guy inside. And like, hey, well, it makes a lot of sense to me that if we're being asked for help, but we can't help, or there are blocks to that, that would feel really scary or
Hmm.
make us have a lot of anxiety. Because if we are responsible for solving problems in the household, but we can't, what does that mean?
Hmm.
Right? Yeah, that means absolute chaos to him. That means mom and dad aren't together. That means all kinds
Mhm.
of things.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, and I can really appreciate that I can appreciate your experience of me that I was resisting help. And just to clarify a little bit, because that wasn't my intention. I see the impact, and I'm sorry for that, because I can see the impact on this little part of you, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm aware of the impact, and I can appreciate that. I really can. And
Yeah.
I think for me, it was a matter of, we keep saying we need to schedule, but nothing happens. And so I was saying, if you want to schedule, just schedule it, right? Just
Hmm.
schedule it. Like I scheduled this podcast time. And so if I came across as resisting help, that wasn't my intention. And maybe we can talk about, I don't know, just maybe offline, even ways to communicate that better, right? Just differently, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, just because of the sake of time. But I really appreciate you sharing that, and want you to know that I love you so much. And I also I don't ever want you to feel blamed or hurt. That's never my intention. And I also realize that intention doesn't equal impact. And so for the impact that I'm sorry, because I don't want to activate your sweet system. And I know sometimes my words and actions can do that.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I wonder if we can, just because again, we've talked about this being kind of just short snippets, and I'll give kind of a shameless plug for my book, Love, Sex, and Autism: The Radical Truth About Intimacy and Neurodifference. Maybe just talking about what we're doing here, like
Hmm.
repairing. And I have all these little nuggets, kind of broken up little things people can do. See if you and your partner, this is on page 66, can revisit a recent unresolved conflict that you had where one of you is well intended but ended up impacting your partner in a hurtful way. Can each of you practice? Can you each practice making a repair by sharing your experience with one another? For example, can the person who made an impact acknowledge this by owning the impact and apologizing? Can the person who was impacted also acknowledge how they were impacted, what they need going forward, and perhaps express appreciation towards their partner for owning their behavior and apologizing? And so for listeners, you literally just got to see in real time us practicing what I wrote about in the book on page 66, chapter 5, what causes conflict. And then the last part of that is, if it's too activating to do the exercise, wait until either you're both more grounded, or if you meet with your couples therapist. And so I don't encourage people to do this live all the time unless you have the ability to, because it's pretty raw. This was pretty raw, but this is what I want the podcast to be. And so,
Yeah.
and I also want people to be able to know that live on these podcasts, you and I are going to talk about an issue that comes up for us, and then apply stuff from the book.
Mhm.
So that folks, that whether you can't afford it, you don't want to buy from Amazon. By the way, if you want me to ship you a book from me, not from Amazon, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. You can message me. Go to the website, either namasteadvice.com or CandiceChristiansen.com, and just say, hey, heard this podcast and I would love, for you to ship me the book. We can coordinate that. And yeah, I think lastly, I want to say, follow me on Instagram at Love, Sex, Autism. I do talk about more of the dicey, I guess what people would consider as dicey, about sex and autism and sexuality and gender identity. But I do that because, same with my book, there's just too many pathologizing stereotypes about autism, that we don't want relationships. We're not capable of having relationships. We don't want to be intimate or sexual or have romance. And yeah, some people are asexual. That's an orientation. I talk about that in my book. Some people are, not interested in relationships or romance. Some people are hypersexual. It's a spectrum too. Our gender identity and our sexuality is a spectrum. And I want to talk about I want to talk about those things. I want to talk about the harder things. I want to talk about the fun things. I don't want to just talk about what everyone talks about. I want to go to those places with you, Chris, for our listeners. Kind of the darker caves, and just shed some light on that.
Yeah.
So thank you for starting us off and being willing to get on right when we were in the thick of it. I
I
love
think
you.
it's perfect. I love you so much.
I love you so much. I think it's perfect.
No. And I don't think it was a shameless plug. I think it was an accurate plug, right?
Mm,
It's like we were in conflict.
mm,
We know these tools, obviously,
yeah,
right? And when we use the tools, we had a very connecting conversation,
yeah,
And so
yeah,
like I think that your book is a very valuable resource to people, especially
yeah,
folks that can't afford therapy. You know,
right?
like it's like, hey, we need something. We can't afford therapy.
Yeah,
And how do we start to repair? How do we start to communicate differently? And
yeah.
so, yeah, it's a great resource.
Thanks so
You
much,
know,
babe.
yeah. And I
I'm
think,
gonna. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I'm gonna also post this on the Love, Sex, Autism YouTube channel. I've had that for different YouTube channels for so long, and I haven't used YouTube, so I'm gonna be courageous and I'm gonna try and get this posted on the Love, Sex, Autism YouTube channel, just so people have resources and
yeah, great.
access.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off though. What were you gonna say?
Thank you. Um, I think the fact that this was live, was very helpful, right? Because we are more mindful, we're being more intentional, right? We're trying harder. And this is actually a tool that I share with a lot of my clients of like, hey, if you're gonna repair or having a repair attempt, or you're gonna be having maybe a harder or difficult conversation, to actually record you guys. Like put the video on, set it up, and then have the conversation because there will be a part of you that is going to try harder. It's going to be digging a little bit deeper, slowing things down. That's a hallmark of good communication is slowing it down. And so, and if it completely goes off the rails, you'll be able to go back and see what happened, right? Especially if you have a therapist that you're working with, that can help review it, like what happened here? What part came forward?
Yeah. Not using recordings as a way to weaponize, though. I want to be mindful of that. And I'm also aware we share this Zoom channel with a colleague and we have to get off in 1 minute. So I just want to say thank you, Chris, my love, for being courageous to do this with me. And there's more to come, listeners. This is just the beginning. So thank you so much for listening and stay tuned for more. Bye now.